This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by OneIMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers.
For this episode of Coffee with Closers, I'm sitting down with Aleks Gollu. He's the co-founder and CEO of 11th Site, an inbound video call platform for revenue teams. Aleks is a serial entrepreneur and CEO with a successful track record of building innovative solutions from idea to exit. He started his career at Oracle and Sapient. However, being in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, he rapidly realized his passion for entrepreneurship and co-founded multiple companies. He holds a BS degree from MIT and an MS and PhD degree from UC Berkeley. Gollu has also been granted 8 patents. He's fluent in 4 languages. Stay tuned for my conversation with Aleks, where he shares practical advice for entrepreneurs and business leaders on what it takes to build and grow a successful company. Hey Aleks, I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
Hi, thanks Samuel. Thanks for having me.
Most certainly. Every entrepreneur has an interesting story of how they overcame obstacles to become an entrepreneur. I see you're a senior, serial entrepreneur. You founded multiple companies. You're a professor. You have a lot going on in your life. Can you share with our audience a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, how you got to where you are, and now you're running this new company called 11th Site?
Sure. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey, and I came to US to study at MIT, did my undergrad, came to Berkeley to do a PhD. But along the way, it was also evident that I needed some industry experience. So after my master's, I started working. I joined this company, Oracle. They were young. There were like a couple thousand people. When I heard about them, they were 1,000. By the time I got there, they were 2. And it's like, this is too large. I joined and moved to another company, Technicron Communication Systems in Berkeley. They were about 100 people. They went public while I was working there. So all of that gave me this taste of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial journey. Still, I went back, I finished my PhD. In fact, it was during those PhD years that I met Farah Eskafi, who has been my business partner since 92 in various endeavors. And after our PhD, Farah and I were working on automated cars, automated highways, the stuff that's just happening now. We said, this is not going to happen in our lifetime. Let's go do something else. And this was like the beginning of the .com era. Motorola flip phone, StarTAC was the most advanced phone. Netscape was new. So what we told people is, come to our website, tell us what you are interested in, and we'll send you relevant SMS messages with your horoscope, team results, or stock prices. That company, we were able to get like $3 million funding of day one. Times were different. We had no experience, 4-page business plan, no revenues, no product. Yet we were able to get the funding. We built that company, we grew that company, and ultimately sold that to a competitor. So there is that journey where, as we were building up, the .com bubble crashed and we had to deal with it. And yet we still were able to deliver something because internally we had defined success as being able to see the company through without screwing it up. And given that we managed to sell it to a competitor, and as founders, we made some money in the process, that was a success story. Subsequently, both Farah and I, we saw RFID. In today's language, we both created IoT companies in the cloud. Mm-hmm. Those words didn't exist back then. Farah built an RFID chip that was location capable. What I did was use off-the-shelf RFID and solve a point problem in the supply chain, namely the management and the life cycle of trailers in distribution center and manufacturing plant yards. So RFID would augment the user input and we would accelerate the journey of a trailer through the yard. So that company was ultimately acquired by Excel KKR a couple years ago for $50 million. So the success criteria for our second startup was to make money for every shareholder. Mm-hmm. And we delivered on that. And then, so after 2 companies, Farah and I, we were talking, he had sold his, I had moved to the board in my company of what do you want to do next? Do you want to become angel investors and consultants? And one way or the other, things evolved into 11th Site because we saw another opportunity. We saw video in the horizon. This is like 2016, even before the pandemic. We knew about Zoom. People weren't quite using them. We were new about FaceTime and WhatsApp, where two friends talk. And we said, look, there is a third use case here where a business wants to bring their showroom to their customer's living room, or their conference room to their customer's conference room, with instant video conversations. I mean, if you think about it, back in the 80s, if you were a sales guy sitting in your office, the phone would ring, you would have your suit and tie, the other side wouldn't see it, but you would pick up the phone and talk to them. Mm-hmm. And what has since happened is all sales organizations have gone to this AI chatbot, fill out a form, we'll schedule a meeting in 5 to 10 days type of process. And on high velocity sales, that just kills the deal. So we saw that is a fundamental problem. So how can we make it possible for a prospect to reach a business from anywhere on the web, and then for a business to be able to effectively answer that call so that you can increase your lead conversion and you can increase your revenues? Mm-hmm. And that problem basically then resulted in the third company, 11 Site, where now this time we are aiming at the upside.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. Like every one of those companies that you started, we are way ahead of the time, especially in the time you were in and when you were building that company. Even like the one that you're talking about, IoT, right? Like using technology and the RFID to be able to track assets, which is there's a lot of companies in that space today, because it's almost become a requirement. I think, like especially if you're in the healthcare or in the life science industry, you have to track the origin of a product and what was the kind of the supply chain path it took to get to the final destination. And when if you have recalls or quality issues and things like that, you got to pinpoint back to where it originated from. But yeah, just to hear the story of how you started that way back in the days, that's just crazy story.
Yeah, I mean, so for your entrepreneurs in the audience, I mean, there are two ways you can approach a startup. One is you pick an existing problem and you solve it in a faster, better, cheaper way. Your customers already know how to buy that product, and that's all good, but there will be a lot of competitors. On the other extreme, you see a new technology or changes in the social structure, and you say, okay, what can I build that would reframe the problem? Right? People aren't quite even seeing the problem. I mean, the canonical example is the Xerox machine and the carbon paper, right? And then who thought when the Motorola flip phone was the most advanced phone that you would be able to touch the screen and expand it and it would become your personal digital assistant? Everybody thought that would be a different device, but the App Store came and all of a sudden, back then, everybody was looking for the killer app. And there is no killer app. It's like many different apps on which you are using your phone today. Yeah. So, of course, what is ideal is to position your company somewhere in between, because you need to be the size of an Apple to pioneer an iPhone, right? So where you have already an existing problem, an existing set of people who are solving it, but you change things on them, right? I mean, so when we built yard management using RFID, our customers were using paper and pencil to write which trailers were in the yard. It was that which we automated. And when we come to 11 Site, it's the realization of a lot of market dynamics that as a company, I mean, there was a time that your website was the single source of truth about you. That has changed because now people can read about you on Capterra, on G2. Maybe you have YouTube videos. You are doing social selling. So on the flip side, your customers or prospects are also well informed. They self-educate. And at some point, they make a decision. And at that point, they want to reach out to you. And the last thing you want to do is give them friction. And there are companies out there who still use a phone number or an 800 number on their website or in other materials where they say, call us. So why not just make that initial video conversation person to person? And that actually lowers the burden on the person answering the call, because there is no way I can be prepared for a meeting with you. Right? You just called me and I'm going to ask you a few questions to better understand what your requirements are. and my goal is maybe to ask you to come to our showroom or schedule a meeting with an account executive so that we can give you the right demo that will address your needs. So that's basically where we positioned our company this time. And to even further facilitate this, what we are also telling our customers now is, look, if you are not quite geared to answer those calls in real time yourself, we will answer them for you. Because on that initial call, we know this from ourselves and we know this from our existing customers. All you do is talk 5-10 minutes, qualify that customer with 3-4 questions, and then there is a very simple meeting, a very simple get in that conversation. Schedule a meeting, invite them over, send them to the website, and get them sign up with a free trial. Right? That's what you want to achieve in that 5 to 15 minutes, because that's a highly qualified lead. Because if somebody has taken the time to give you a video call, they mean business, right? Because our customers have shown that the video-initiated conversation or a relationship is 3 times more likely to result in a sale than any other medium on internet. And the reason for that is twofold. One is you move things forward faster. Everybody tells you that if you don't get back to a lead in like 5, 10, 15 minutes, it exponentially decays in value. So we are basically giving you the fastest time to lead possible instantly. And the other reason it's so productive is those are highly qualified, self-qualified customers, right? And if you don't, then you have problems. Like I'll give you an example from my side. Is last year we were all 1099 contractors. So in December I said, oh, do we want to be W-2s next year? I reached out to TriNet, ADP, and Paychex thinking, okay, maybe we can still do this in December. Now, by the time Paychex and ADP got back to me, I had a handshake with TriNet. So ADP and Paychex didn't even get a chance. But had TriNet not come back to us, we would probably just gone another year with being 1099 contractors, right? There's a lot of stuff that you have to build in your company, a lot of problems you need to solve. You will solve those who are low-hanging fruit. So sure, I did my homework and I said, okay, I can basically make this enhancement in my company, but there are 3 other things I could do. If the vendors are not in a hurry to talk to me, I'll go do something else.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that you brought up that I want to kind of expand on. So you talked about the entrepreneurs, the idea to go, invent something new, right? Creating a brand new category, a problem that existed, nobody's actually even thinking about it, right? Reframing the problem and coming up with a solution that no one ever thought about, or just improving upon something that already existed, making it cheaper, faster, better, right? But the challenge with the other option, right, which is like reframing the problem and coming up with a solution, is no one is actually thinking about a solution like that. So you're creating a category, which makes it extremely difficult to capture the market share or even create the demand for it. So what have you seen work?
There's a lot of education you need to do.
Exactly. So before we can worry about the inbound leads, right, then you have to go figure out, how do I educate the market, create interest, make people come to me looking for the solution, and then I can sell to them. So what have you seen work, especially in the early days of building that second company? How did you create the demand for a solution like that?
So in our second company, basically we went and, it was actually one of the general managers in the distribution centers we're talking to, because we were like looking at technologies on one side, location capabilities, and problems in the supply chain, in the warehouse, on the retail store. This is the time when Walmart is saying, oh, we're going to put an RFID tag on every item, right? And as we talked to GMs, they said, look, retail, forget about it. It's too soon. Warehouse, I have control, but the distribution center, those 200 trailers, we get stuck on the highway behind these trailer tractors. For all you know, they have toilet paper that they are delivering to Safeway. This was an issue at the pandemic. So there are facilities with 200, 300 such trailers parked at the yard. So he said, out on the yard, I don't know what's there. This paper that they gave me printed today is what I had in the yard yesterday. So that's where we ultimately realized that, okay, in the minds of the GM, this problem is understood, right? And then when I take that to 11 site, so what we came to as we work with a lot of customers, what we came to realize is that our ideal customer profile is defined by their average customer value and by their sales cycle, right? The customer value needs to be more than $1,000 because a video call is expensive, right? It's not like somebody in their shorts are chatting with 5 different people at the same time, who knows where. It needs to be a presentable person who's talking. So that 5-minute, 10-minute conversation will cost you some money. 10, 15, $20, whatever, right? So your leads, your warm leads need to be worth $100 to do that. The other is the sales cycle needs to be short, right? 1, 2, max 3 conversations, 30 days result in a sale. Why? Because if this is a 9-month sales cycle with RFPs and RFIs, who cares if you answer that first call immediately or not? Sure, you will leave a good impression, but that will dissipate over time. And if there is going to be an RFI, your company will receive the RFI anyway. So it was, in our case, in this company, it was more about focusing on that because we had a broad set of successes, right? We were successful in automotive and buying cars, in home retail, refrigerators, TVs, and so forth. Even in real estate, because over there, while the value is higher, the customer still makes a quick decision. It's like, okay, do I want to buy a house? We were particularly successful in vacation home purchases, because they are not in town, right? Will they actually fly over there to see the new construction or not, right? The get is to excite them about the property and bring it. Because they came to the website, they show some videos, they are excited. You just need a little bit more push. And actually, that sort of also brings us to product-led growth, or B2B SaaS companies. The idea with product-led growth is the product is leading, right? They are bringing the leads inbound to your website where they are supposed to convert. So why not just put an additional 5-minute conversation on the table so that you eliminate any objections that they may still have in their heads, or build some legitimacy and trust. That's maybe what it takes, right? Because we sold our solution on AppSumo last year, and we did that. We just, as a team, answered calls as they came in, and it made a huge difference because they realized that there is a company behind this product. It's not faceless masses. And they also know that if they have a question down the line, they are going to be able to reach us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jason Lemkin has this article that when the phone rings, pick it up. It's also about customer success, right? In SaaS-based businesses, every month is a new booking. So we look at ourselves as a customer engagement platform where the relationship starts in that inbound call. Maybe you have a meeting or two, you close the deal, you have started the relationship, and then you can, on an ongoing basis, offer live conversations. Now, of course, it needs to make business sense. Your customer needs to warrant that 5-minute, 10-minute you're going to put into them on a regular basis. But rather than making 100 outbound calls to find that one person who will pick it up and will want to talk to you, if there are 3 people calling you, just pick up the call.
Yeah, most certainly. And I
Any
think
part in the life
that
cycle.
the video actually also increases your, that connection, right? Like
Yes.
it's not just a chat bot or a phone call, right? You're able to see the person on the other side. It increases that connection with them, and you might be able to make a much better impression as well. So obviously you found a lot of companies, you learned a lot of lessons in the process of building these companies. What are some big lessons that that comes to mind from having built these companies and now also teaching other entrepreneurs at Berkeley, right? So what are some lessons you've learned in the process of building these companies?
I mean, several. One is you need perseverance and resilience, because anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? And you need to be ready for that long journey. because on one hand, everything takes longer than you think it would. But the flip side is, assuming you manage your cash wisely, you also typically have more time than you thought you had for something to manifest. Having said that, never waste any time, maintain that urgency. But if you're doing a fundraising with a VC, don't expect that it's going to close in 2 weeks. It's going to take whatever it's going to take. And if they are going to be distracted by some other deal, maybe they'll go silent on you for a week or two. Don't let any time to go to waste, but also learn, be patient. The same thing with the customer. You should always be closing, right? Coffee with closers. But then there is also no point in choking the customer and sounding desperate. So finding that balance in all of the engagement is important. We already talked about making sure where you are. Is it like an existing problem, brand new category, or somewhere in between? Because brand new category, it's a tough job. You really need to let people relate to it. It may require you to raise a lot more money. And then once you succeed, okay, so you have a unicorn. But I mean, before Apple, there were many other companies like Danger Research that were trying to build the next iPhone. They failed. They failed because they didn't have the infrastructure for it, right? And the team, of course, the team is most important, because in my mind, most startups fail because of the team and the relationship among the team members. It is important to have that trust, because things will go wrong. More importantly, you will make mistakes. I mean, the more things you try, the more things will go wrong and the more mistakes you will make. So if there is a trust that you guys are aiming at a goal, a common goal, then you try, you fail, you correct, you adjust, and ultimately you get there. And also important to understand the risk tolerance of team members, right? If one person has 2 years worth of savings in the bank, whereas the next person is just one more mortgage payment in the savings account, and the kids' tuition is coming up, right? That's inevitably going to create friction and problems.
Yeah, those are some real big lessons for sure. I mean, especially if you're thinking about starting a company, or you're in one, just at least recognizing what might be going through the minds of the people that you are working with. So you talked a lot about, like the business that you started and also the kind of business that you've exited from. What's your why? I mean, you keep going at it, right? So if this is your third venture, you also have a consulting company on the side and you teach. So what's the why? What gives you the drive to just keep going?
So, I mean, the consulting, so after my second company, the question was, okay, do I go into consulting, teaching, or do another company? And the company happened very quickly. So once you are in a company, that's like a 60, 70 hours a week commitment. You forget about the consulting and all of that. The teaching I do more as a hobby. I mean, it clearly doesn't pay nearly enough, but it's good to see those young entrepreneurs and get their enthusiasm and then enable them to succeed. That's almost like giving it back to them. But then there is something to be said about that ultimate satisfaction you get when the company succeeds, right? I mean, in second company, Pink, we did 100K, a million, 2 million, and then the 2008, 2009 financial crisis happened, right? We had to cut down a million, and then we grew back again to 12 million, right? You suffer through most of those. So most of the time, the house is burning. And then at the end, there is that one short moment where things work, and that's what you are working for.
Yeah, if you're in the Oracle space, you might remember an acquisition that Oracle made called Big Machine. Have you heard of Big Machine? Maybe not.
What year is this?
I don't recall the exact year, but it's the same founder of G2 Crowd. He shared the story of how Big Machine was similar to that. They had a runway. They didn't make the runway last long enough because they were making enough sales. They were spending all their time creating products. And then the founder ended up having to fire everybody in sales and go back to selling himself. and make money, and then finally grew the company to a successful size, and then ended up selling it to Oracle for a couple $100 million. So, I mean, you, like you said, like a lot of times, you think you have time, but you may not have time, so you can't waste any time.
Yeah.
So hiring VPs of sales and marketing, hoping that they're going to do the job of, what a founder only can do.
Yeah, I mean, you need to make sure that there is a product market fit, and you ideally started with a team where there is technical talent, marketing talent, and sales talent. If your initial team can't market, generate enthusiasm, and sell the first few customers, there is no point in hiring salespeople, because what you haven't been able to sell, they're not going to be able either. Like in our first company, HotelNet, we started with a slightly different product. We weren't able to get the carriers buy it. And then a partner said, oh, we can sell this. And we were like, okay, I guess they know better. But ultimately, they all saw the same objections, and it didn't come together. So we did have to pivot, and then ultimately succeeded with the SMS application. So finding the right product market fit and finding the right scalable message before you scale is key.
So obviously you went through schooling a lot. You have a PhD, right? You have multiple degrees. You teach. So I'm sure you're a learner, lifelong learner. What are some of the things that you're doing for personal development? How do you stay sharp, and how do you continue to grow your skills and knowledge?
I mean, part of the reason I teach also is because knowledge is changing. I mean, when we talk like IoT in the cloud, that IoT company in the cloud didn't exist 15 years ago. MVP did not exist 15 years ago. Figma that got just bought, right, for however $1 billion. 7-8 years ago, there were like 5 other versions of Figma, Balsamic, and this and that, and they were all evolving, right? So when you are teaching, you have that need to also learn, not just what you need in your company, but in a more broader way. But otherwise, definitely you need to network with people, keep an open mind, keep reading, keep talking to people. Because the only way you are aware of what's happening in your domain is by looking at it. I mean, like one of the things we do with our engineering team is we actually, like once a week, we get together, and 3 people will have looked at either a competitor or somebody in an adjacent market or a similar product, and gives an overview of, okay, this is what this company is doing, right? That's good for all of us to be aware of what else is going on. And that actually allows us to guide our roadmap, gives the team enthusiasm and pride in what they are building.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, a lot of things are changing so rapidly. You have to be, in the forefront of learning where the industry is headed, so you can be constantly evolving your product. You can't wait around, if you wait and snooze, someone else is innovating much faster than you, and you could be missing out on opportunity.
So I mean, that's actually also what we tell our customers is that, look, I mean, maybe you have been just throughput optimizing your sales team by letting people schedule meetings 5 days from now, but only 70, maybe even less percentage of people show up to those meetings. So you are essentially losing 1/3 of your top of your funnel, and nobody has enough leads to do that. And then in high velocity sales, clearly 78% of people buy from the person they talk to first. And there is no VP of sales who has enough revenues or enough leads that the demand gen person is handing off. And the demand gen person just wants to make sure that the sales team is following up on those leads, not like sitting on it for a day or 2 or a week. So the right thing to do is to rethink how you are approaching and how you can differentiate against your customers, against your competitors, right? If this is like a $17 t-shirt, nobody needs to talk to the customer. There is not enough margin. The customer doesn't want to, but nobody will part from $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 just like that. There needs to be a conversation, and that conversation is best had when the prospect's mind is on this problem, right? They just read one more review on G2 and they're like, yeah, this company can solve that problem for me. You get them at that moment, you close the deal, you go get your coffee. I'll have a sip here.
So obviously you built a lot of companies, and obviously to build and scale and grow a company and even exit it, you have to have a lot of systems and processes, right? So what are some experience, what are some lessons that you learned in the process of building companies? What kind of systems and process really helped you to scale and remove yourself from the day-to-day so you can actually exit that company?
I mean, as a CEO, my goal always is to make myself irrelevant in the company, or so that the company is not depending on you. And yet I never was able to work any less than 60 hours a week, because there's always new things that are happening that somebody needs to figure out how to orchestrate before you can build the processes. But the other thing that's also important is to know your stage and not to over-engineer things. Like, I was actually in a session talking to a number of CEOs the other day, and the CEO said, well, we have some high-paying customers. They have given us some feature requirements, but I'm going to run some marketing campaigns where there will be possibly a lot of people who will sign up for our product, and I want to build all the automation scripts for onboarding. Which one do I do? And the answer is pretty clear. It's like, you keep your existing customers happy, because if you all of a sudden have a lot of signups, that's a good problem to have, right? You will figure it out, and then the engineers will work faster. On the other hand, if you build that infrastructure for automated onboarding, and if nobody comes, then all of a sudden you have a bad problem. And meanwhile, you alienated here some high-paying customers. And I mean, another example is, like, I had a CFO in one of my companies who would always think, with these type of standards, we could never go IPO. And I'm like, let's turn profitable first. Right? Then we will worry about it. And for all you know, we'll never go public. And sure enough, Pink was acquired for $50 million. Yeah, sure. They did find at the acquisition due diligence, there were some tax related issues, but that didn't stop them. So make sure that you are building the processes, you are thinking about scalability, but don't get ahead of yourself.
And obviously, when you're building companies, you have a lot of strategic decisions to make, and you were talking about conversations with other CEOs and giving them recommendations and coming up with strategies. Is there like a decision-making framework that you follow? If so, can you share with our audience what that is?
Have a good team and trust them, right? So if you are going to so my style is, I want the people in the company, in the room, maybe some advisors, some investors, and talk about it. And if we are all rational people aiming at the same goal, the correct decision, or the best possible decision, will actually emerge. Right? If you have people in the room who don't know what they're talking about, or they just talk so that they talk, then that process doesn't work. But what I found is that if you have a competent team and everybody is rational, if somebody is in the room who feels strongly about a certain decision because they know what they're talking about, they're going to be able to justify it to others that that's what it is. If nobody in the room knows where to go, it's like everybody is 20% confident, then you just need to make a decision, test the hypothesis. If you fail, you need to change. The hardest time is, you have two choices, it's 50-50, and everybody is sort of 50-50, 60-40. The key thing there is, if you are 60-40, be very clear that you are 60-40. Don't pretend that you are 90-10 certain, right? Because if everybody in the room is leaning to the same direction, 60-40, or the majority is, that's where you're going to go with some degree of confidence. On the other hand, if nobody is agreeing and they are also comfortable that I don't really know, then maybe you need to do some homework. You need to get some more information. The things go wrong if the person in the room doesn't have the confidence, pretends that this is the right way to go, and when people challenge with rational questions, then they get upset.
Yeah.
right? It's like, well, it's a fair question, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's where I think you need to be a leader who is willing to listen and learn, and not just just take irrational decision and just move forward. And you alienate people in the process too when you don't give them you don't give other people a chance to express their ideas or opinion about a decision too.
So
So
I mean, like Tench Cox, who was the VC who funded the second company, Pink. I mean, he said, "Look, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'll make a lot more mistakes. But the key thing is to keep moving." So, I mean, there are some CEOs who want to sort of have this aura that they'll never make mistake, and if there was something wrong, it was the VP's fault, and if it works, it was theirs. It's in my case, it's the team succeeds or the team fails.
yeah, my brother always tells me we're co-founders, and he tells it doesn't matter. You can't blame anybody else. You just got to own your problem. It's your problem and figure out how to solve it, because nobody else is going to own it. You just have to figure out why it happened and how do you avoid from ever happening again.
Yes.
So obviously, like we were talking about, you have this business you're running, you're educating, you're also coaching, consulting. There's so many things you're doing. How do you stay productive? Is there some sort of a productivity hack that you have that you can give other entrepreneurs on how they can get more stuff done?
So I have two things: sleep 8.5 hours a night, and then exercise at least 1 hour a day.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, some days are 10, 12 hours. Sometimes there are no weekends, but if you get some 150, 160 heart rate going, that clears the nervous energy that you have accumulated during the day. And if you get a good night's rest, the next day you get up and whatever is awaiting you, you attack.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of last questions. So if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Everything, right? Because I did this life. I would do something totally different.
And knowing what you know today.
It's like no one thing. It's like, so, okay, I wanted to get my PhD. I got that. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I did that. So forget the PhD, forget the entrepreneurship, go do something totally different.
Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give your younger self?
The younger self, make sure to breathe along the way and, smell the roses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Sometimes we're in a hurry. No time to pause and enjoy life. I think that's
because so being goal oriented obviously helps you succeed, but you are always focused on the goal, and you need to learn to celebrate the small successes better than when you are just focusing on the next one. Because like at a startup, whatever was a goal becomes a mean to the next goal.
Mm-hmm. Most certainly. Well, Aleks, I certainly enjoyed our conversation together. Thank you so much for sharing your life lessons and your experience with our audience.
So, and if anybody wants to reach me, I'm available. So they can come to our website, they can call our sales line, and then the line can be transferred to me if they actually are told that they heard me on Coffee with Closers and they want to ask another question or something that I have said resonated and they want to share an anecdote. I would be happy to do that. And if anybody is in demand generation and sales, they should come to our website and sign up for the solution. And if they mention the promo code CLOSERS10, we'll give them another 10% discount. And I guess we will put all of this in the notes when we publish this ultimately.
Awesome. Thanks again, Aleks. I certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit OneIMS.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.